The conference room aboard the Vazrik embassy was a kaleidoscope of motion. Light bounced off the crystalline walls and refracted through the 7-faceted eyes of Ambassador Kisvik, whose mandibles clicked in condescension as he addressed the solitary human among them. "So, you're telling me humans don't have any natural defenses?" Lieutenant Commander Ethan Reed resisted the growing urge to smirk. 6 months of interspecies diplomacy had taught him patience, barely. The alien's smug curiosity was endless, especially when it came to Earth's defenseless apex species. "That's correct, Ambassador," Ethan replied smoothly. "We're pretty much just meat and determination." Kisvik's expression, if you could call the subtle shifts of a face encased in exoskeletal armor an expression, radiated superiority. No venomous appendages? No reinforced armor? Not even basic chromatophoric camouflage? Ethan gestured lazily at his clean-cut uniform. "Nope, but our lack of natural weapons is exactly why we got so good at building them." There was an awkward pause. Kisvik muttered something to his aide, a being of claws, antennae, and rigid posture, who made a series of rapid, dry clicks. Ethan's translator made no attempt to decode them, which almost certainly meant it wasn't polite. "Fascinating," Kisvik finally said, his mandibles tapping rhythmically. "And yet you've survived, thrived even, without being culled by superior predators. Your world must be extraordinarily gentle." This time, Ethan couldn't help it. He laughed. Loud, rich, utterly human. The room froze. Even the temperature felt like it dropped as every alien eye fixed on him. "Ambassador," Ethan said, still chuckling. "Earth is many things, but gentle? Not even close." He leaned back with a casual ease that belied the steel underneath. "We've got storms that could level your cities, oceans that swallow steel-hulled ships whole, and temperature swings that can boil or freeze you depending on the time of day. And that's just the weather. The wildlife? Some of them have teeth longer than your forearm. And don't even get me started on microbes. We've got bacteria that'll liquefy your insides in a matter of hours." Kisvik's aide shifted uncomfortably. "Good. Then how do you persist?" Kisvik asked, his curiosity now tinged with something more. "Hesitation? Wariness? We adapted," Ethan replied. "Not with claws or armor, with something far more dangerous. Creativity, cooperation, and an unrelenting refusal to die." A beat passed. Then Kisvik's posture straightened. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." Ethan's internal alarms went off. He recognized this tone. It was the same smugness that always preceded one of the Galactic Council's so-called friendly competitions. Rituals designed to put newcomers in their place. Politely, of course. "There will be a test next cycle," Kisvik continued. "A display of survival capabilities. Each species will send a team. We would be intrigued to observe the performance of your kind." Ethan's eyes narrowed, his polite facade unmoving. Declining such an invitation would be a diplomatic disaster. Accepting it, a trap. "We'd be delighted," he said with a too-wide grin. "Send over the details. Earth will send its finest." After the delegation skittered out, Ethan's communicator buzzed. He didn't need to check the ID. "You got the invite?" came Admiral Helena Weber's voice, dry as ever. "They're calling it a test of survival capabilities," Ethan said. "I'm 99% sure they expect us to fail on a galactic stage." A pause. "Then we can't let that happen," Helena said simply. "Let's show them what Earth's apex predator really looks like." 12 hours later, aboard the UES Pathfinder, Ethan stood in a room filled with the kind of people who made him proud to be human. And maybe a little terrified. 4 hand-picked representatives, no uniforms, no ranks, just quiet confidence and a shared understanding that they were walking into something designed to humiliate them. Ethan addressed them. "Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all stepping up. You're not just representing Earth. You're rewriting how the galaxy sees our species. Kai Nakamura, lean and wiry, cracked his knuckles. When you said aliens think we're prey animals, how could I say no? Liv Erikson, the biologist with a 1,000-mile stare earned from surviving Arctic whiteouts and Amazonian fever, nodded. It's about time someone corrected the record. Marcus Alvarez, former Force Recon, smiled coldly. This going to be one of those operations where they don't expect us to walk out? Pretty much, Ethan replied. Eli Bennett, the team's geologist and environmental adaptation expert, leaned forward. So what's the game? Ethan activated the holographic projector. Vasrich Prime, not their homeworld, but a colony turned proving ground. Each species sends 4 individuals. They'll be dropped separately, survive for 14 solar cycles, and reach the extraction point. What's the catch? Eli asked. Multiple, Ethan said. First, no advanced tech or weapons, just basic survival gear. Second, the environment is engineered to be lethal. And third, you won't be alone. The projection shifted to a terrifying slideshow of alien competitors. The Vazari, armored wall crawlers. The Nor, telepathic humanoids. The Crawl, strength 5 times a human's, each had an edge. None were human. They want to prove we're inferior, Ethan said. They think we'll die quickly and quietly. They're about to be very disappointed, Marcus growled. Don't get cocky, Ethan warned. The goal isn't to win through violence. It's to survive and show the galaxy that humans don't go quietly into extinction. So we're going full apex predator? Kai asked. You're going full humanity, Ethan replied. Which might be worse. The 4 of them exchanged looks, nods, determination. When do we leave? Marcus asked. 12 hours, Ethan said. Get ready. This isn't just a mission, it's history. The Vasrich transport ship descended through sulfur-stained clouds and a sky that flickered with electric tension. The contestants had been sedated for the jump. No special treatment, no fanfare, just bodies flung into chaos. When Kai Nakamura came to, his mouth tasted like metal and ozone. He blinked, adjusting to an eerie red twilight. The air was breathable, barely. Humid, heavy, choking. The ground beneath him pulsed with fungal growths, oozing a faint bioluminescent sheen. A soft chime in his ear. Day 1. Begin. He grinned, cracked his neck, and whispered to no one. Showtime. Half a continent away, Liv Erikson crawled from a shallow impact crater. She scanned the horizon, her Arctic-trained eyes immediately noting wind patterns, fungal colonies, and heat signatures. This place wasn't just hostile. It was predatory. She found her pack half buried and pulled out a compact, hand-cranked water filter. If she didn't hydrate soon, she'd die before meeting any aliens. Day 1. Begin. She whispered back, let's see if this place bites harder than Earth. Meanwhile, Marcus Alvarez was already bleeding. A laceration ran from his collarbone to his bicep, courtesy of a reptilian ambush predator that had dropped from the canopy like a coiled spring. He'd reacted out of instinct, rolled, stabbed, gutted. The thing still twitched beside him. He tied a bandage tight and surveyed the corpse. It had 6 limbs, 2 mouths, and a vestigial eye stalk. Smelled like ammonia and wet copper. Jesus, he muttered. They weren't kidding. But Marcus didn't panic. He grinned. Feels like home. Eli Bennett's start was worse. He landed on a cliffside, one leg twisted underneath him. For 2 hours he lay still, eyes scanning the terrain for movement, cataloging local mineral formations and thermal updrafts. Then he set the leg. No scream, just controlled breathing and a calm, shuddering exhale. He braced it using part of a tree bark and a protein thread wrap from his pack. Not ideal, but functional. With pain sharpening his focus, he muttered, this planet wants a fight. Fine. He limped forward. He knew how to outthink a hostile biome. Earth had taught him well. Across the galaxy, the games were broadcast like reality television. Alien viewers watched eagerly as species clashed with terrain and each other. Human odds hovered near zero on Vazrich betting networks. "Too soft," one Krakow warlord said. "No claws, no stingers." "No future," replied a Growl merchant. "They'll perish." Admiral Weber, watching from Earth orbit, sipped her coffee with grim satisfaction. They really don't get it. Day 4. Kai Nakamura had built a perimeter. No weapons, but he'd turned scavenged bones into defensive spikes and used vines to rig tripwires. His small fire smoked just enough to keep the insects at bay, but not enough to reveal his position. When 2 Vazri scouts crept near, he let them come close. Too close. One stepped into the spike pit, screeched. The other bolted, only to trip his vine snare and fall face first into a mud trap spiked with sharpened shale. Kai stood slowly. Not a scratch on him. "See," he said aloud, "the trick is not to look dangerous. The trick is to be dangerous and let them figure it out too late." Liv wasn't building traps, she was moving, constantly. She mapped territory with chalk, memorized topographic features, and followed signs of predator migration to avoid danger. On day 6, a crawl beast charged her. She didn't run. She let it. Over a cliff, into a lake of sulfuric sludge, it screamed as it dissolved. She stood on the edge, breathing hard, her knife still sheathed. "Earth teaches you when to fight," she whispered, "and when to outthink the fight." Marcus. He was hunting. By day 7, he'd learned to track the others, not just the aliens, his own team. He'd found Liv's chalk marks, spotted Kai's traps, saw Eli's fire remnants in the faint blood trail, and he saw what the aliens didn't: coordination. They assumed humans were isolated. They didn't understand the one advantage no other predator here had: pack strategy. Marcus spent his nights ambushing isolated aliens, not killing. Marking, making noise, letting others think the jungle had new apex predators. By day 9, whispers spread through the alien teams. The humans hunt in silence, they move together, they see us coming. Panic set in. Day 10, the Vazrich host activated a storm system. Artificial tempests, electromagnetic disruptions. The game field shifted, paths flooded, gear malfunctioned. Eli Bennett hunkered in a shallow cave as lightning snapped overhead. He traced a map in the dirt, calculating elevation gains and where the extraction beacon would likely be. He didn't sleep. He planned. "Don't win by being strongest," he muttered. "Win by being inevitable." He reached into his pocket and touched a small relic, a polished stone from his daughter's grave. Motivation matters. Day 12. The human team finally reunited briefly at a signaling cairn Kai built and Liv deciphered. 4 of them. Scarred, starving, exhausted, alive. They didn't speak much, no need. They ate, shared intel, synced watches, and then dispersed again, each heading toward the extraction point from a different path. Alien observers didn't notice until it was too late. They were surrounding the goal from 4 angles, like wolves closing in. It wasn't brute force, it was tactics, and Earth breeds tacticians. Day 14. The Vazrich control dome, orbiting high above the Death World, buzzed with frantic updates. Viewers across the galactic networks were tuning in by the millions. Ratings spiked. The humans weren't just surviving. They were strategizing. It was unprecedented. "They're not supposed to collaborate," hissed a Kraka tactician, mandibles clacking nervously. "Their species ranking is barely sentient." Admiral Weber, patched in remotely, just smirked. "You gave apex predators the illusion of isolation. But we are never alone, not really." On the ground, Marcus moved like a phantom, smeared in ash and blood. His scent masked, his footfalls silent. He'd tracked a Drakari hunter, 8 feet tall, plated in armor, wielding a bioelectric spear. Marcus had no weapon, didn't need one. He lured the Drakari toward a ravine, feigning weakness. The predator followed, eager and patient. One wrong step, its weight collapsed the edge, sending it tumbling. Marcus was already gone, watching from above. "Wrong planet to underestimate a human," he whispered. Kai, meanwhile, had breached the perimeter of the extraction beacon. It stood on a moss-covered plateau, flanked by two elite alien champions. One a speed-based assassin species known as the Tishul, the other a brute force tank from the Hyroxian Forge worlds. He didn't attack. He studied. For 12 hours he observed their rotation, measured timing, wind currents, even how often they blinked. When he moved, it was like watching the wind shift. The Tishul lunged too fast, missing only by centimeters. Kai dropped, slid between its legs, and stabbed upward with a shard of tempered obsidian he'd shaped from volcanic glass. Straight through the creature's brainstem. The Hyroxian charged. Kai didn't fight it. He let it. To live. Liv Erikson had set the trap. An entire field of flash root plants, highly flammable and volatile under pressure. She lit the field as the Hyroxian thundered into it. It roared once, then exploded in a blaze of blue fire and searing light. The shockwave flattened trees. Liv ducked, rolled, and popped up at Kai's side. "Still breathing?" she asked deadpan. Kai nodded. "Missed you too." Eli was the last to arrive. Limping, bleeding, but eyes sharp. He had the beacon codes, not because he found them, but because he'd hacked the alien comm system and reprogrammed the beacon to recognize human biosignatures as VIPs. That wasn't survival, that was victory. Atop the plateau, as the sun set in violent oranges and purples, the four humans stood united. The beacon hummed, activated by Eli's signal. But they didn't leave yet. They stood and waited. Because they knew what came next. The final test. A Vazrich cleanser squad dropped from orbit. 10 elite hunters, genetically enhanced, armed with ranged energy weaponry and telepathic coordination. The aliens watching across the stars leaned forward. This was the execution sequence. The make sure they don't actually win clause. The first Vazrich didn't even land. Liv shot at mid-air using a pulse rifle she'd scavenged and repaired days earlier. The second landed on a rigged proximity mine, courtesy of Marcus. The third and fourth were drawn into a false retreat line and eaten alive by a territorial species the humans had studied and baited into the trap. By the time the sixth and seventh came into range, the humans were coordinated, moving like a single organism. No speech, only hand signals. They flanked, they cut down. Eli, bracing against a tree, Pat barely standing, calculated sniper trajectories from a ridge 300 meters away and took the final kill shot with a custom spear launcher. The last Vazrich dropped. Dead silence. Then, extraction sequence confirmed, human victory registered. The control dome erupted in chaos. "No one has ever won," a Vazrich adjudicator shrieked. "This violates 10,000 years of protocol." A Kragan diplomat snapped, "You called them prey." Admiral Weber's voice echoed through the chamber. "Earth doesn't raise prey, it breeds predators." She disconnected. Back on Earth, cities erupted in cheers. From Dakar to New Delhi, Chicago to Seoul, the footage played on repeat. Not of brute force, but of cunning, unity, human ingenuity in the rawest of trials. 4 survivors, 4 predators. That night, as the extraction ship carried them away, Liv finally broke the silence. "I thought we'd die." Marcus smiled, bloody and tired. "We were supposed to." Kai leaned back. "But we're not supposed to anything. That's the point." Eli opened one eye. They'll never make that mistake again. 1 week later, the Galactic Senate convened in an emergency session. An event so rare it hadn't occurred since the extermination of the Zorvoth plague. Now trillions tuned in across hundreds of star systems, waiting to hear the verdict. At the heart of the storm sat the 4 humans, Marcus, Liv, Kai, and Eli. Cleaned up, patched up, dressed in planetary delegate armor they had no desire for. But they didn't kneel, they stood. Because predators don't bow. The Vazrich delegation sputtered. This was never intended to elevate a species. The survival trials are symbolic, meant to observe, not reward. Admiral Weber, seated beside the human team, replied calmly, "Then, you shouldn't have made it real. You shouldn't have filmed it. You shouldn't have celebrated it as entertainment." Her words hit like plasma rounds. "You tested Earth's deadliest without warning, without consent. You kidnapped them to amuse yourselves, and they won." Her voice turned to steel. "Now you fear the consequences." The Senate descended into chaos. Species who had once treated humanity like a primitive backwater now whispered in awe and terror. The humans didn't just survive, they manipulated the board, baited the players, turned nature itself into a weapon. The term HFY, humanity fuck yeah, exploded into galactic vernacular, in memes, in fear, in legislation. Behind closed doors, the Council of Apex, the secretive coalition of predator species who ruled from the shadows, convened. The humans, by precedent, were now to be offered a seat. It had never happened in recorded history. No prey species had ever won entry. Marcus sat across from a Drektoll warlord, whose 3 eyes blinked asynchronously. "You are clever prey," the warlord rasped. "But cleverness is not dominance." Marcus simply replied, "You mistake our restraint for inferiority." The warlord leaned forward. "Do you know how we determine who sits among us?" Liv answered from the shadows, "Trial by confrontation. Right?" The room tensed. She stepped forward, tossed a data chip onto the table. It showed her team wiping out an elite Vazrich death squad with sticks, traps, and teamwork. The room went silent, and then laughter. Deep, bone-rattling alien laughter. "You already passed," the warlord said. "You humans are elegant monsters." Kai raised an eyebrow. "We prefer adaptive apex organisms." Weeks later, Earth received a galactic transmission. The welcome tone was formal, political, but beneath it was the message. "We underestimated you. You have a seat at the table now, and we're watching." Across Earth, humanity changed. Recruitment centers flooded, training programs updated. Interstellar academies offered Earth's universities joint ventures, because the galaxy had seen what Earth made, not victims, not prey, but hunters. Each step taken across concrete or forest or ash-soaked jungle was deliberate, calculated, earned. Eli, recovering in a cybernetic medical wing, smirked at the news. "They'll never run that trial again," Liv chuckled from across the room. "No, because the test became the lesson," Kai added from a nearby console, "and we rewrote the syllabus." Marcus stood at the window watching the stars. His voice was low, certain. "No, we just reminded them that Earth never raised sheep. It raised lions." The end.